PlayStation is defined by its exclusives, and that's especially true over its most recent generations, some of which are an absolute necessity to play if you have a PS4 or PS5 console. So, we put together a list of 15 exclusives that should absolutely not be missed. Sure, the Dark Souls series is what developer From Software is most widely known for, but for anyone who's had a good dose of Bloodborne in their bloodstream knows that that game is possibly the studio's strongest title. It's like Dark Souls, but gothic, terrifying, vicious, and way more blood-soaked. No doubt that it's just as difficult as the Souls series, riddled with a haunting story cryptically interlaced through its world. But Bloodborne just hits different. It's way faster and way spookier. It also has this hot mama. It's a part of the PS Plus collection, so if you haven't played it yet, well, then maybe it's time that you learn to fear the old blood. Death Stranding certainly has a unique approach to open world game design, one that's spent walking around, keeping your balance, climbing uneven terrain, and delivering packages. It's hard to understand its appeal at first glance, but at its roots, it's a game about connecting an America that's become disbanded, fractured, and forced into hiding due to a grave and commanding threat. It's a little too on the nose in our post-2020 world, but that makes it all the more poignant and worth playing today. Also, you best believe it's as off-kilter as you'd expect coming from the mind of Kojima. A director's cut of the game is coming out on September 24th with updated visuals and new content. Besides, it also has Norman Reedus taking care of a baby and drinking Monster Energy drinks, so yeah. Okay, yeah, we already mentioned Bloodborne, but we can't possibly ignore the game that started it all, Demon's Souls. It's the game that put From Software on the map as the studio who would become known for brutally challenging action RPGs. When it originally came out, it was more of a cult hit in comparison to the later games in the series, so it only made sense to bring it back a decade later as a launch game for the PS5. Few games showed off what the next generation felt like as well as the Demon's Souls remake. Its textures, lighting, load times, and the use of the DualSense are all remarkable. Remake studio Bluepoint Games didn't change what made the original masterpiece, but instead smoothed out the edges and presented the modern classic as it should be seen today. There's been a few game creation tools released for consoles, but none of them have reached the heights of Dreams. Though Dreams has a short campaign created with in-game tools, mind you, and it's really good, the true star of the show is the massive creation suite that allows you to build pretty much whatever you can think of from the ground up. Like all tools, it's kind of a learning curve, of course, but the well of user-made creations is simply staggering, and you could easily spend hours upon hours playing or watching other creators' work. After being announced only to slip back into the shadows, followed with multiple delays and a complete revamping to its design, it's a surprise the Final Fantasy remake even came out, not to mention the miraculous recapturing of the original's essence. But Final Fantasy Remake does more than just hone in on the magic of the first, but creates something entirely distinct that sets it as its own marvelous adventure. While it controversially moved to real-time combat, the result paid off thanks to a considered system that balanced strategy over mindless hacking and slashing. It reimagined Midgard in staggering detail, and emphasized its characters with more depth than the original allowed. The result is a journey worth taking, regardless of whether you cared about the first or not. Ghost of Tsushima is the definitive samurai game. It's stitched together with high noon drama, scenic vistas, stoic heroes, and blood spray. Through and through, it's a love letter to classic samurai cinema, paying constant homage to the style of films made legendary by director Akira Kurosawa. It has a beautiful open world to explore or meditate with, a spanning combat system, and some nice buns. If you haven't played this one, give it a shot. It was recently released with a director's cut with new content, and while you're at it, you might as well go give Yojimbo a watch. You won't regret it. It's not often that a reboot of a beloved franchise becomes the best game in the series. However, Sony Santa Monica's God of War did, well, just that. It did more than just trade Greek mythology for Norse. It gives its leading man some much needed depth and delivers a story-focused experience. God of War gives a new side to Kratos, one that's more contemplative, albeit still flawed, but more introspective, especially with the dynamic of his son Atreus. God of War, hands down, has some of the best cinematic action scenes ever made, and is layered with a thoughtful combat system. If you have a PlayStation 5, it has a free upgrade that features 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, and is also a part of the PS Plus collection. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the best first-party open-world games for PlayStation. Developer Guerrilla Games crafted a unique, post-apocalyptic world that feels both primitive and futuristic, and that's thanks to its robot dinosaurs. All of which is boasted thanks to a great story with excellent combat that involves studying a machine to figure out the best approach to taking it down. The sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, is set to release in February of 2022 for PS5 and PS4. The Last of Us was, by many, considered the PS3's best game. It was so damn good and ended in such a way that the very idea of a sequel was just controversial. It just didn't need one, or so we thought until The Last of Us Part 2 came along. The whole thing is a meditation on revenge and takes the time to see its story of anguish and violence through many different lenses. The result is something that is, at times, hard to stomach and even uncomfortable. And well, it's a topic that shouldn't be easy to stomach in the first place. Its combat is a well-balanced ballet of action, violence, and stealth, which is intricately packaged with a brilliantly realistic world and heartbreaking performances. It's a display of Naughty Dog's unflinching confidence, and it pushes the medium of games and interactive storytelling in bold new directions. Marvel's Spider-Man is easily one of the best superhero games ever made. Swinging through Manhattan streets, scoping out its skylines from its highest points, and beating up baddies as Spider-Man has never felt more Spider-Man-like. It's also a great Spidey story and an incredibly well-written Peter Parker. Its follow-up, Spider-Man Miles Morales, though a shorter adventure, still impresses thanks to the characterization of Miles Morales. The PS5 Ultimate Edition includes Marvel's Spider-Man, all 3 expansions, and the Miles Morales campaign. Bet you never saw this one coming. Persona 5 Royal is an expanded version of one of the best JRPGs on PS4, but it's more than a simple re-release with added content. It's got a whole bunch of new stuff, including a superb new palace. However, most impressively is how it's reworked its original content. Developer Atlas made sweeping changes to the original story that helps it tie together in a much more impactful and meaningful way. And regardless of whether you're familiar with the Persona franchise or not, this is a fresh start, so no context is needed to just jump in and start stealing hearts. The original is available via PS Plus collection, but we'd recommend opting for Persona 5 Royal if you can. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a spectacle of the PS5's power. Its effects, environments, load times are all turned up to 11, including the DualSense haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. It's also the introduction of Rivet, with a storyline that interweaves alongside Ratchet, giving 2 distinct gameplay experiences, including the new mechanic of instantaneously transporting to wholly new environments, and it's a whole bunch of fun. Returnal takes the roguelike genre and launches it into the AAA stratosphere and beyond. With the exception of the game Hades, Returnal is one of the few games that take the roguelike formula and infuse an engaging and thought-provoking story throughout it. It's also, arguably, one of the most difficult games on this list. It uses the formula to deliver a punishing experience that requires trial and error to make progress, with an emphasis on dodging and nimble gunplay. It's one of the best PS5 exclusives, but just be wary if you're not a roguelike fan, it may be hard to get into. Shadow of the Colossus was one of the best PS2 games, and Bluepoint Games, the same studio behind the Demon's Souls remake, brought it back in style with the 2018 remake. Just as it was 15 years ago, Shadow of the Colossus is a towering feat in storytelling and game design, taking a formula like Zelda's dungeons and making them physically walking towering colossi that wander the world. Determining how to topple the colossi is a part of the mystery and requires more than just platforming, but puzzle solving and a bit of ingenuity. It's also just stunning to look at and tells one gut punch of a story. Nathan Drake's swan song brought Naughty Dog's charming action-adventure to a fitting conclusion, at least when it comes to Drake's arc. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End has more spacious set pieces than early entries, allowing for a more free-form approach to exploration and combat. It feels less scripted than Drake's other adventures, which in turn provides a greater sense of discovery in the adventure. It's large in scope, and it balances its moving parts exceedingly well to give a proper goodbye to one of Sony's most iconic characters.
You do know that you're not actually Nathan Drake.
You shut your mouth. You shut it.
It's a character.
I will cut you, I will open you up and bleed you out.
And that wraps it up. If you're a PS4 or PS5 owner and haven't given any of these a shot, well, consider taking the time to squeeze it up on your backlog list. Anyways, thanks for watching, and don't forget to give us a thumbs if you liked it and a sub for more gaming content.